And welcome back to the Rock Shop Podcast. Joining me today is a very special guest, and her name is
Alicia Godmasch.
Hey Alicia. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Ryan?
Doing great. So what brings you on today?
Well, actually, I'm just excited to chit chat with you about some of the stuff that I'm working on. I'm glad you invited me here, and yeah, basically, it was just to hang and chat with you for a little while.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could make it on. For the audience, we met at a film festival, several years ago, and
Mm.
I was on a panel and you moderated, and that was super cool. So I'm
Thank you.
glad we could reconnect. Come on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's been a minute. Seems like it was yesterday.
Yeah, it does kind of, it just feels like the past few years have just kind of flown by,
Yeah, it really has.
with everything, with movies that are coming out, with
Yeah,
um, you know, any event happening, it's kind of wild about that. But
yeah,
so what have
absolutely.
you been up to since then? Like what have you been working on?
Well, so that I can talk about. I'm actually working on quite a few things. There are a couple of things I can talk about. One is I'm very excited that a documentary that I was working on with Religion of Sports it's going to be released on April 23rd, and it's called The Quincy Avery Effect. And it's about Quincy Avery. He is an incredible quarterback coach, which before this documentary, working on this documentary, I didn't know existed, but he has been pivotal um, in shaping the success of quarterbacks like Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts and so many other quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And it's just a super exciting um, experience to watch him work and to watch him. He works with all kinds of football players, whether they are very young, and in grade school, or whether they are, in college and working to get in the NFL. And then he works with people in the NFL too. So it like runs the gambit. And so we follow him in the documentary, and his story unfolds in such an amazing way. And so yeah, he's just a really inspirational human being. So I'm very excited and proud of what we did. Very proud to have worked with Religion of Sports and still very much in contact with them. And so, that's coming out on Hulu on April 23rd, and I'm just really stoked to see it. And there are some other things that I'm working on as well. Actually, a bunch of other things I'm working on as well. Um, but, let's see if I could talk. Oh, so one other thing that I just finished was working on, what's called the Remarkable Women's Project, and basically that project is, consists of telling the stories of women who have shaped the course of history in America and other countries. And, they've done all of these great things, like invented things that we still use today, and, you know, created voice over internet protocol and all of these great things. And somehow, their stories have either been suppressed or just you know, kind of looked over. And so our project consists of telling these stories about these women from all different ethnicities and cultures, and how they have contributed um, to society in great ways, and to celebrate them. And in addition to that, we have a summit that we did. It kicked off last month, and so that summit was about gathering folks together, gathering women together, celebrating women in the industry that have made incredible moves. And so we actually had this summit take place in. Let me know if anything happens here. I'm just going to make sure I don't get any disruptions. Um, we held that in Ireland,
Oh wow.
and yeah, so we were in Dublin, and we held that over in Ireland, and it was pretty. It was a very, very um, life changing experience, and I just loved it. So we did that, and that was over the course of a couple weeks, but we had been planning it for a while, so it went off without a hitch, and we were just very grateful for that.
That's great. That's really awesome to hear. I will say to the audience, a lot of them are people in their 20s. Um,
Hmm.
and I can't stress enough the importance of going to the events like these, finding them in your community. A lot of people are kind of downtrodden that they're not in their dream city for their dream career. But I mean, there's so many networking events. You might think to yourself, oh, why would I go to a film festival in Alpharetta? What's happening in
Yeah,
Alpharetta? But that's how we met. And
yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. You never know what what is going to come out of one of these festivals, but you got to be in it like you, Ryan. You're in it for the long haul. Um, I think the issue with people these days is that they want instant gratification. This is not an industry where you're going to have instant gratification. Um, this is an industry where you're going to have to commit to the marathon, right? And a lot of times when you see people step up and receive awards for the work that they've done, they've been in it for like a decade or more. They've been in it for years. And the coming together for successful projects is the result of them finessing their network, building relationships with people and friendships, and then having the word get around about their own work ethic and commitment to this art. And that is what creates award-winning film. That is what creates opportunities where you're then able to receive from all of the efforts that you put in over the course of time. So it was funny because I follow Jared Leto, and he again just confirmed that a couple days ago on his Instagram feed when he was just like, listen, 30 Seconds to Mars wasn't just something that, they see this good looking young guy and okay, well, now he's famous. He worked very hard for like 10 years before he was even discovered, so it takes time, and you have to be willing to put in that time. And I would also add that you have to, as you're moving through the process, it's very important to be humble. It's very important to keep a positive attitude. And it's very important to watch how you move with others. This is a very, very small fishbowl that we are swimming in. It may seem great and vast and whatever, but I could tell you right now, I've got folks that I talk to and they're all over the world, right? And it's all small, and we know people who knows people who knows people. We're all connected. So you go into the industry and you think that you can with people, whether it's a PA or whether it's a director or whether it's a whatever, talk. People talk. And again, the successful folks have been the ones who have been able to, you know, um, move through and keep their reputation in a good place. Um, you'll see some people that who have a reputation for being nasty, but they have a reputation for being nasty. So if they can have a reputation for being nasty and manage to get something done, imagine what would happen, how much better off they would be if they could be kind. How much more would they get done? So it's a matter of keeping that in mind as well. So yeah, definitely. If there's an opportunity for a film festival, go. You don't have to be spending gazillion dollars to go to these film festivals, like the one we went to in Alpharetta. You could go and attend, and the cost, it was very cost effective, and it's not just that. There are some times where you have like group meetups for industry meetups and stuff like that. You can go to those too, so, or you can go to maybe one panel, and listen to a panel and meet people from there, and maybe not go for the full day or whatever. There are all kinds of ways that you can get out there and meet people if you're willing to put into the effort of discovering those ways of critical thinking, and figuring out a good solution as to how you can get in there and start networking. And another thing is that when I first got started in this business, I did exactly what we were doing at the conference over in Alpharetta. Is I got out there, I invested in myself, and I went out there and started meeting people, started meeting people. And sometimes you don't see the results of that, for years. But then when it starts happening and you start talking and working with people, and you start talking about projects, some of those projects succeed, some of those projects will fail. But I will tell you that a lot of the projects that I'm working on, I would say all of the projects that I'm working on, have been with people that I have known and worked with for years.
It's so important to foster those connections you make and those relationships you build. Absolutely, because it does truly take a village.
Hmm.
I love success stories like Kevin Smith, who, he made
Mm,
his first film, in the quick shop grocery store he worked
mm,
in New Jersey. Someone I'm really loving right now is Sean Baker, who just
mm,
won Best Picture for Anora.
mhm,
Um,
yeah.
the Criterion Channel is airing some of his first films, and
Mm,
these are just movies where he was just running around New York with a camcorder, and you
mm,
start like really understanding where he developed his style, because a lot of his movies are pretty similar, cover
mm,
similar themes. They're very realistic.
mhm.
I loved Anora a lot.
Yes,
And,
Anora was excellent. It's a masterpiece.
it was, and it's so interesting seeing like his humble origins start in New York
Mm,
with 3 grand, and
mhm.
um, have uh, that same kind of style on your everyday person, and
Yeah.
following their life and following their struggle.
Mhm.
Um, I can't recommend going to film festivals enough, because, if you're Sean, even if you're just in New York, you got to meet people, you got to find your actors and find your
Yeah.
crew,
Right.
because no one's an island. And,
Mhm.
you'll need specialists in audio and video,
Yeah.
that sort.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of people who, just have so much talent, I went through your IMDb, and you just had so many different roles over the years. I was hoping we could talk about that. Just what
Yeah.
different hats you've worn. I know
Mm,
you wrote a book, and I know
yes.
you were a producer, and you
Yeah.
worked on an ABC show.
Yes.
And
Well, yeah.
I was even curious because I think we talked about this, years ago, but you didn't go to film school either. You went to the business school. So I was hoping you could
Yeah.
just go over your whole path.
Okay. Well, yeah, it was an interesting path indeed. One great thing is that I've always been surrounded by people in the industry. Um, my late uncle created Emerge magazine. He was the founder of that magazine, and before that, he was a writer for the New York Times. And then my other uncle, which is his brother, he was a model before he became a banker, and he was the first African American model for Sears when he used to get the Sears catalog and all of
Oh,
that and stuff like that. So he was the first African American model for Sears. And then I have another brother who is a voiceover actor, and he's been in front of camera for a long time. So um, I've always been surrounded by it, but for whatever reason, kind of path completely separate from the industry, right? Like even during college, I was always in background roles and all this other stuff. So I was adjacent. I would help my brother on some of his things that he had going on um growing up. And I remember uh when I was very young going to, I think it was the Today Show, and I met with Spencer Christian, and because my brother was having an interview with him and stuff like that. So these are, and I was actually operating the camera for that interview. And it was back when those things were like so huge and heavy, but I really enjoyed it. And so yeah, I've kind of been adjacent, but when I went to college, I thought, go into business. And I'm so glad I did that because, as a friend of mine always tells me, we're in show business. There's the show and then there's the business, right? We have the creative side show, and then we have the business affairs that also need to be taken care of and handled professionally and with care. And so I went into that, and my major was business management, um, with a specialization in hospitality management, which was great because after that, I got a job with, I hope I'm not dating myself here, but Sending Corporation, which turned into Wyndham Corporation. And, um, and so I worked with them, and then I began working for some major pharmaceutical companies. And during that time, I gathered so much information. I learned how to balance a budget, how to close out a quarter and close out the year for major franchise hotel franchisees. So you can imagine how many millions of dollars I was working with. I was able to become an international financial consultant and travel around the world, making sure that franchisees had their stuff in order, and their books in order according to their agreement. And so I did that, and I'm very grateful for that experience because eventually what happened was I went and I lived in Europe during that time. For about 10 years I've lived in different parts of Europe, 5 years in Germany. And so in 2013 I came back to the United States and moved to Georgia, which is where my I have a lot of relatives in Georgia, but my brother Robert lives in Georgia, and he and his wife, and I have nieces and nephews too that live in Georgia. But anyway, um so I decided that I was going to move to Georgia, and I did that. And then I started getting into the film industry, and it was kind of funny because my father was also from Macon, Georgia. So whenever I would go to visit my brother during the years, that even when I was, living in Germany and stuff like that, I always kind of felt an affinity for the state. And so I'm like, I feel like I'm going to live here. And sure enough, in 2013, I came here and I loved it. And then I got into film, and I remember it was such a blessed occasion. I'm a big believer in God, and so I was just looking for a different kind of role where I could be more free creatively, because working in corporate, everything is kind of rigid, right? You have a box that you're kind of put in creatively, like, okay, we want marketing, but we got to do this and we got to do that and we got to do this. The only marketing event that I was really able to just you could run wild with was one for a former executive for Organon Corp, and his name is Art Van Oos. He's from Holland, great guy, and he let me just run wild with it. And I remember feeling so liberated, and I felt so good, and I felt like all of my synapses firing, and I'm like, I love this feeling. It was like a high, and I'm like, I would like to get back to that. So I came to Georgia, and I got into film, um, first project I had was for an Amazon project, which was great. You know, I enjoyed that experience. It was really cool. And I remember the first time I saw my name go up in the credits, and I'm like, whoa, this is so amazing. And then after that, um, I was just really praying for a good opportunity. And then I was on one of the websites, Staff Me Up, I think it was back in the day, and they had a role for a location manager. And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's kind of like marketing and event planning because I've done that before for events." You know, first thing you have to do is pick, you know, a location and stuff like that and whatever. And I know how to budget, you know, manage a budget and create a budget and, you know, make sure my I's are dotted, my T's are crossed because that, you know, has a lot to do with my accounting background. So let me go for that. And I called and they called me back, and this was Swirl Films. They called me back within an hour. My interview was the next day, and on the spot, they offered me the job. And I was so ecstatic. It was just like boom, boom, boom. And I knew that that's where I belonged. Because I remember one day when I was in the car and I was in this process, it was the day before, and I was praying, and I just felt like, oh my God, like this is going to happen. I was praying to actually get a full-time job in the industry, and it happened. And I'm like, wow. And then the next day all of this happened. So I knew that I was home. You know, I had found my home. I had found, you know, where I belonged. And I've been in the industry ever since, and I've had, like you said, Ryan, multiple roles. I've been an executive producer. I write, you know, as you can see, I write, and love writing screenplays. I love producing. That's just, I'm really passionate about that. And, you know, I love my, one of the things I love the most about film is I will generally have this moment where I'm on set. And I used to have the same kind of moments when I was planning like big high budget events is I'll have a moment where I'm standing and I'm sitting and I'm watching everything unfold. And it's just like, it just feels almost otherworldly, right? Where it feels, it's like the supernatural experience where you can almost see, for me, it's like I can almost see that instant that spark came into my being about how this would look. And then I have that moment where I'm looking and it has actually unfolded, right? And so I have that in film too, where I'll be on set and I'll be looking around and I'll see, you know, the talent walking by and they're all in like, you know, wardrobe up and stuff and in character. And I'm like, whoa, because this was something. And I remember that spark, you know, that I had when I either got the script, you know, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is how I envision it. And then to see that vision kind of come to life, it's wild. So I really enjoy that. And to me, that's the reward. And I'll also say when we're talking about, you know, networking and stuff like that, like, and I heard it before when I first started, and I didn't really understand the significance of it until now, but until recently. This is really not an industry that you get into for the money, right?
Yeah.
Like you get into it because you're passionate about it. You get into it because it sets a fire in your soul, and you just get so excited to help create art, to make something, to have those moments where you look around and see it all happening. Like that's why you get into this. And hopefully you come to a point where you don't have to have necessarily a side gig to maintain working full time, which, you know, sometimes you do, but hopefully, best case scenario, you can do this full time and enjoy what you're doing, and you can wake up and you can be excited about going to work and live in this beautiful environment where you can bring things to life, you know? But yeah, and it's funny because if you're not in the industry, and I'm sure you've had this experience before too, Ryan, if you're not in the industry and you don't have a passion for the industry, it's very hard to imagine what it's like to be in this industry. It's very hard. Like some people will sit and they'll look at the finished product, the movie, and they're like, "Oh, it's just glamorous." No,
No.
it's definitely not that. It is, and people don't even realize that you're watching these actors, play out these scenes. Those actors work 12-hour days when the camera's rolling. It's 12-hour days. Some work 8. A lot of them, are working 12-hour days, and the crew is certainly working 12-hour days. So if you're not looking to be in front of the camera and you're behind the camera, get used to working 12-hour days. And that's not counting your commute. So yeah, it's definitely something that you get into because you have a love for making this art, for making film. And when you cultivate that love for it and money no longer becomes your motivator, then eventually the money follows. And that's what I found.
Yeah, it's such a fulfilling thing if that's what you're like, really truly passionate about. I mean, I think we've had a really similar like career path. I'm just younger. I'm not, to your level yet, but
Mhm.
I went to school for business management too. I just remember making my first little movie after college on, a little shoestring budget.
Mm.
Um, there were a lot of moments that it was like that spark that you describe. It's like movie magic, but I'll
Mm.
never forget one of them. I read over the script, probably 1,000 times. But one of the most amazing script reads I had was after the film, where I was kind of just flipping through and rereading,
Mm.
some of it, and then I could read it, but as I was reading, I could hear the actors and actresses' voices say the
Wow.
lines, and that was a moment where I just had to pause, and
Mm.
that was just an incredible feeling. I did have a few questions here. Let me
Sure.
pull these up. So you have worked on the Wonder Years, the reboot
Yes,
for ABC.
that was
How
fun.
is that? And do you have a dream IP? Because it seems like you typically work more with like original content, original films, original, um, not backed by any existing property. But do you like how was that? And do you have like a dream property like you'd love to work with?
Um, the Wonder Years was absolutely incredible. It was the most beautiful experience. Um, the director was Ken Whittingham, and he was absolutely so lovely. And the writer, and I have to remember his name because I cannot believe I just forgot it. The writer of the Wonder Years, which I'll think of it in a second. He absolutely was so kind and so incredibly supportive, and and they just provided an environment where it didn't matter like what you wanted to include. If it made sense, they were going to include it. They were going to help you to have at least one frame on that project where you could sit back and you could be like, "Hey, you know what?" Saladin Peterson is what his name was. Um, that um, you could sit and you can watch it and be like, "Wow, I contributed to that directly," and I loved it. And even took the time because we filmed at one point in time by KSU. Ken took the time to talk to the students, to encourage them and their little group, the group of volunteers that came and worked with us for that scene. He talked to them, he encouraged them, and they were so stoked, and it was great. Actors, wonderful. Like they were so great. Everyone was great. Um, and I remember speaking with Dule Hill, and funny story about him. So we're both originally from New Jersey. And when Dule was on the Cosby Show and was 7, I think it was 9, and we're the same age, I think, Dule and I. Anyway, we were at Six Flags, and he and Keisha Knight Pullum were walking around, and she was playing Rudy and he was playing Bud. And I was there. And as kids, we talked, all of us, in like a little circle. We were talking. I'm like, oh, they're from the Cosby Show. And I went up and I talked to Dule and I talked to Keisha Knight Pullum. And I have worked with both of them recently. Keisha Knight Pullum on Pride and Prejudice Atlanta, and she was lovely. And then Dule on The Wonder Years, also lovely. And it was just so funny how, again, all of these full circle moments that you have a tendency to have when working in this industry. And yeah, it was great. The locations were great. The wardrobe was amazing. The wonderful Miss J um, doing wonders with everyone's hair. Um, and it was just fabulous. I had a great time on that project. It was a very, very beautiful project, both visually and also just spiritually, being in an environment, reading those scripts that they were upbuilding, they were uplifting, they were fun, they were light, you know. And I loved that. I loved being in that space, on that show. It was pretty powerful. So I enjoyed that. And as far as what my favorite IP would be to work on, and I don't know if this will happen, we'll see. My favorite IP would actually be working on my own adaptation of my book, which would be Retrograde the Darkness. Um, that would be my favorite to work on, just because I know how that story unfolded. Basically, it was a series of dreams that came to me in sequence, and I'd wake up and write, and I would go on set and I would work like 12, 14, 16 hours, and I would come home and write, and I wasn't sleeping because I was just so fascinated by these dreams that I was having. And it was the most profound experience of my life, and I haven't had another experience like it. But I was just so grateful for that gift, because I do feel as if that story was a gift from God. And so I would be most excited to work on the adaptation of my book. And um, another project that I would love, I could see myself really enjoying working on, would be Dune.
Mm,
Um, yeah, Dune would be fascinating to me because I love everything about it. I love the sandworms. I love the different cultures and ethnicities that they have in the story. I love that tension um that you have just in like between the families, between the tribes, between the it's just this constant tension. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's just simmering. It's just simmering, and it's like an energy, and it's almost tangible, throughout the story. And so and it was, even back then, even when it first came out, and you didn't have a lot of CGI, or you didn't have a whole lot of whatever. You didn't have a whole lot to make it still felt something, but the way I feel when I watch it now is like, whoa, I'm blown away, and so that would be a favorite for me. That would certainly be an honor to do that, and, yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat. I still have to see Dune Part 2. I saw Part
Ah,
1, but I feel like if I saw Part 2, I'd need to rewatch Part 1 and then,
no,
I just have to, well, no, I like to, remember what's happening in the previous film.
but
So,
they kinda tell you, they kinda, like, show
okay.
you. So, I saw Dune 1 in the theater, and I didn't need to rewatch it to see Dune 2. Like, you know, they'll kinda you'll know what's going on, you know?
Okay.
But I don't blame you, sometimes it's cool to sit there and to watch the first one again so that's fresh in your mind or whatever. I didn't have that experience. I didn't feel that was necessary for me personally, but it depends. Like if you're kinda looking for that, you know, from whatever Easter egg is left in the first one, and just trying to go into the second one with that in mind, then that would probably be the best thing, but
Well, I just watch so many movies that they all just kind of blend
oh.
together too. It's like it's
Oh.
why I wasn't in a huge rush to see Wicked Part 1 because I knew Part 2 is
Oh.
out later this year, and
Oh.
um, intermission at the theater because I've seen it on Broadway.
Uh-huh.
Intermission is short enough that I'm like, well, yeah, I'll remember what I just saw. But when the intermission's like a year, I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's kind of spotty. I've seen 1,000 movies or whatever in
Wow.
between. Nah, I mean that's it's embellishment, but
Yeah.
when you see so many, then I'm like, man, what happened in Wicked Part 1? Like, I don't know. I'd love to work anything with Superman. You know,
Yes.
I'm so excited for this new movie coming out. It looks so
Okay.
good. I know a lot of it was filmed in Atlanta. Just looks
Mm.
really
Yes,
positive and upbeat. And I liked Man of Steel kind of. I didn't love it. Um,
I did.
I liked it. I didn't love it. Some people, it's very you like it or you don't, and a lot of
Mm.
people didn't, and I kind of get that. But I don't think it was that positive. I don't think it was like very hopeful film, and I haven't seen it in a while, but a lot of the Zack Snyder verse movies were like they're a little darker.
Yeah,
Um,
which I
I,
like.
well, I haven't seen. There's a show, Superman and Lois on CW,
Oh.
and that's like Superman raising a son with Lois, and his son is Superboy. So it's kind of like,
Oh.
well, it's adapted. I was kind of like, an angsty teen, a while ago, and this Superman comic. I'm a big comic book reader, but this Superman comic came out, Rebirth is what it was called, and basically that's what Superman Lois adapted was Superman lost his powers, so he was able to have a kid with Lois, and then they move out of Metropolis to basically not Smallville, but a small town, farm, and Superman has to balance like being a superhero with being a super dad, but his
Oh.
son is also like a superhero, but he's like, I think he's like 10. So,
Mm.
he's kind of rebellious. He's a good kid, but, like Superman's got to watch out, like what's influencing his kid,
Yeah,
you
that's smart.
know?
Yeah.
It's a really wholesome series
Okay.
and it ran
That's
for like
interesting.
2 years, but it was just
Hmm.
so like, is really just wholesome, is really helpful.
Okay.
It wasn't so
I have to watch it.
grungy. Like I liked Man of Steel, but something like Superman Rebirth and what I've heard
Mm.
from the CW show Superman Lois is that it's all about hope. It's all about raising the next generation to be
Smart.
heroes and to kind of get away from uh, reasons to be unhappy, reasons to be angry. You know what I mean?
Very good.
It's such you turn on the news and
I don't watch it.
it's yeah, well, it's so easy uh to not be hopeful.
Yeah.
the way things are going. And
Yeah.
the series is kind of like, well, he's Superman, and he's just a symbol for hope. That's one thing I did like about Man of Steel. When he points his crest, and
Yeah,
he's like, on my
exactly.
planet, this means hope.
Exactly.
And James Gunn's Superman just seems so upbeat and positive, and
Good.
I'm so excited because I love James's work.
Wow. Yeah, he's really great. Um, so and I'm definitely gonna check it out. I enjoyed Henry Cavill as Superman. I think I really like him as an actor. Um,
He is great
it,
in that.
yeah, he's really great, and so that's what kind of got me to like. I remember watching him, and I never put together that Henry Cavill was the same young boy in Count of Monte Cristo. I just did not put that together. I'm like, his face looks familiar, but where did I see this, you know, stunning looking man? And I'm like, Count of Monte Cristo, and then, but again, another example of someone who has been in the industry for a very long time, and then out he comes as Superman one day. But yeah, he was great. But I agree. I think that and I'll have to check out the series. I'll have to find that series and Superman and Lois and track it down as well because I do think that having this message and this thread, this undercurrent of hope and helpfulness is very, very important in our day and a time. So I'm going to support it because definitely moving toward more projects like that. I don't feel drawn to projects divisive. And it's like at the end of the movie, you're like either really angry or feeling like the dumps. It's like, give me a break. You know what I mean? Like, okay. And I understand some stories and some things are okay, great. It's need to be told and there's not a happy ending. And I get it. But I'm kind of in the mindset that, boy, it could really do a lot of good to give some people some hope and there are always going to be sad stories that are put out there, but if I could be a part of bringing something out that's positive, then I want to do that, or at least something that's so entertaining in a space that clearly is not, you know of the planet that we know it, then it's a little bit more digestible. So I'm very mindful of the kind of content that I put out, especially nowadays, and that's another reason why I love the Wonder Years so much because it was a wholesome show. It was a very, very wholesome show. And I watched the Wonder Years growing up, and I enjoyed also back then the wholesomeness of that show. And to have the option for people to be able to give their kids something that is hopeful and positive and upbeat and wholesome is important too. We don't want to get bogged down with everything so that parents or teenagers or even adults it, are just have the choice of miserable, totally violent, or pornographic. Like people don't want to watch that stuff. So people want to watch things that are wholesome that they can sit down and they don't have to cover the eyes of the person that they're next to or whatever. So I love that. So I'll definitely have to check out Superman and Lois. I'll have to track it down somewhere and watch it and commit to that. Um and yeah, I will certainly see the new Superman when it comes out. It does look, yeah, the preview does show that that it'll be a fun Superman.
Yeah, and that's something really big. Like I did not care about Superman growing up. It wasn't until past few years that I could really appreciate the character and some
Mhm.
of the comics. But it's so hard to write something like that. Like my dad and I were arguing, like who's cool, or Batman or Superman.
Yeah.
Like Batman's awesome.
He is great.
Don't, yeah,
I
everyone
love
likes
Batman.
Batman, but it's so easy to write Batman. Like you got to be talented to not make Batman cool. Like you don't even have to be like a decent writer. You could make Batman cool. But Superman, that's so much harder to make him compelling because he's so powerful and he's basically kind of flawless in a way. Like,
Yeah.
he's inherently a good person.
Yeah, he
Um,
is.
he's not like an edgy guy. He's not like a guy with he has trauma, his home
Yeah.
planet blew up.
Blew up.
Um, but it's like, how do you make someone like that cool? And like, some people call him the big blue Boy Scout. That's like, how do you make that cool? And I think you can definitely, you can
Yeah.
make them compelling.
Yeah.
Um, that takes talent to make Superman cool. It takes talent to make Batman uncool. But when you read, a truly great Superman story, um, I think that really shines, and I think you have something really special. I think you have something that is kind of inspiring. So I think that's pretty neat.
Hmm.
I do know that we're starting to run a little short on time,
That's
but
cool. Okay.
there is something big I want to bring up.
Okay.
Be honest with you, I can't add too much to the conversation, but I was very interested in talking about this with you. So you worked with Bravo.
Yes,
You worked on one of the Real Housewives franchises.
I did.
You worked on that was the streaming only show,
Yes.
right?
No, so Peacock, yes, I worked on Ultimate Girls Trip. And I did actually work on Real Housewives of Atlanta for a little bit during COVID time, but we ended up getting shut down.
Wow.
So yeah, but the one that came out was Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. I think that was season 2.
My mom loves I believe she watches Orange County and Beverly Hills.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So she doesn't live with me, but sometimes she'll like stay in Atlanta
Okay.
for, a few weeks or something, over the holidays or whatever. But she really enjoys, that show and like Southern Charm. I believe that's on
Uh-huh.
Bravo. Maybe that's
Yes.
on AMN. I don't really
I think it's on.
watch them, but like I'm in the room.
Okay.
Um, I do like I believe it's Jill Talley, whoever was Sam Simon's wife, ex-wife, the guy who worked on The Simpsons, and she was
Oh
like
yeah.
Bride of Chucky. No, Jennifer Tilly.
Jennifer Tilly, yes.
Yeah, she's really great. I like her, but I don't
She's
really
fun.
it's not really
Work
for
with her.
me, but I'll be in the room. But I was
Yeah.
hoping, like, I don't know if you had like a fun story or if you had like, I don't know what you can really, say, or, if
Mm.
you liked anyone in particular, if anyone was super cool.
Well, I will tell you this. Very fun working with the group that we had. They were very lovely ladies. Um, I really enjoyed working with Eva. She was very sweet. Phaedra, also very sweet. Because it was a mixture. So we had Randy Glanville, Phaedra Parks, Eva Marcel. I hope I'm saying her last name right. And we had oh shoot. We had a couple other ladies that were there. Dorinda Medley. Dorinda, very, very sweet lady. I enjoyed getting to know her. She was so funny because she would always call me Ashley. I don't know why. She's like, Ashley, Ashley, and I made my book and it's called, Make It Nice. And, we're talking about her book and everything. And she was a lot of fun. Um, she tells it like it is. She's sensitive. And I came out with a lot of respect for all of the women. A lot of people think that when they watch Housewives that it's scripted. It's not scripted. I can tell you that right now. Like that it is not scripted. That those ladies do not need a script. you get them together, and there's gonna be a drama, there's gonna be some stuff that happens or whatever. Um, but I'll say this, um, they're good people, you know? They're good people, they're fun, they're funky, they're eccentric, some of them, um, but they're good and they're kind, and, you know, for some people, and especially I find people in the reality world, some of them have a tendency to be a little insecure because it's their life, you know, it's their life, and people, it's easy for people to pass judgment on them, what they say, what they do, or whatever. And when they see other people on the street, they feel like they know them and everything about them and everything else. And it's like, well, you're seeing a part of their life, sure, but you don't know all of the circumstances surrounding why they acted the way they act, or the traumas that they went through when they were a child, or what happened after the camera stopped rolling and everybody made up and went to dinner. Like, you don't see those things. And so you'll have people that will come up to them and be like, "Oh, you did it, da, 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 da." And it's like, show, you know, it's a show, and you saw a part of their life, but you know, understand that you don't know these people personally, and they're nice people. They're really nice people, and they know how to hustle. There's not one lady that I met on that show that does not have a business, that's not doing their thing, very involved in philanthropy. Like, they are busy ladies. They are worker bees, and they get stuff done. So in addition to, you know, maybe having a couple drinks and dancing on a table, they're moving and hustling. And Eva, she was busy during the time that we were there. You know, she has a you know, a radio show too. So she was busy working, doing her thing, you know, doing what she needed to do. And you know, they would make phone calls. Everybody's making phone calls trying to get their work done, you know, when they had that time to do so. And it's a lot. It's a lot. They juggle a lot. And then some of them are mothers, you know, so they have their kids that they're working with, or their ex-husbands, or their husbands. And it's like, it's a lot that they manage. So I would just say, in regard to that, you know, the show, enjoy the show, but have empathy, you know, because you don't know. You know, you don't know everything there is to know about these people. So have a little empathy. They're really sweet ladies, and they're really kind, and they were very respectful to the crew and to, you know, to the producer team and everything else. And you know, they're going to let you know when they're not pleased, for sure, but they, no disrespect there, whatever, from this group. I can't speak for everybody. You know, there are some people that have other stories working with these ladies, uh um in different areas or whatever. So you have some people that are just, nobody wants to work with. So I don't know them, but I could speak from my experience personally and say that, you know, it's a good time.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. Is just, yeah, I don't watch a whole lot of reality TV, but it's just, you know, another version of film where, you know, that's a curated experience, and that's curated because it is edited, and
Yes,
you know, the director and the editor want to curate a certain vision,
exactly.
and you know, cut scenes because you have so much footage. You
Yes.
know, scripts are so long, like, you know, before the shooting script, I mean, so long, like, you know, sometimes almost 200 pages, if not more. And, you know, then you just have to cut it up to find the story to reinforce the themes. And, you know, I think like reality TV is no different, even though you don't have a script. Like, you're trying to find, you know,
Yes.
the
Story arc.
the story arc, yeah, cut it up, get all the footage, cut it up, and make a story out of that. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
because
Exactly.
otherwise, I feel there's probably a lot of downtime where it doesn't make for exciting TV.
Well, it depends. No, I wouldn't say that. Just because what we do try to do when we go over there, there's always like something. There is some, you do have some downtime, especially like if they're going to sleep or whatever. And then you still have cameras rolling. You have then a B team that comes in and kind of looks over everything to see what's happening and if anything interesting happens over the course of the night. But each day there's something that they're doing, right? So there's always something, and usually it's like three things that will be going on that day because all together you want to make it interesting and you want to have interaction and stuff. So you have to kind of plan the day. Like, all right, well, what are we doing, ladies? Like, what can we do or whatever? And so you plan the day and find out what they're doing or if they have an event or whatever. So we're shooting, we're definitely going places with them, doing things. It's not a day where it's like, okay, well, everybody's just sitting around the house and talking. Like, no, there are usually like three things, maybe four things that are happening. And sometimes if one person's going in one direction and the other person's going in the other direction, or you have a group, two groups going in different directions, or everybody's going in different directions, you got to follow because again, all these ladies have stuff going on. So you may have one that's got a premiere party that they're going to attend because they've been invited here, or one that has a fundraiser somewhere and they're going to go and do that, and then you may have one that's like, oh well, let me go shopping over here. So all of these things are happening because this is real life, right? So sure, we are curating and we are, getting that story arc and stuff, but a lot of footage can be captured to support that story as they're doing what they're doing. There's always something going on. There's always something going on. A friend is coming over, they're talking about something, they're whatever. There's always something. There aren't too dumb there aren't too many dull moments actually. And unless they're sleeping or unless they're taking a nap. And they do sometimes take a midday nap, which I
Yeah.
thought was really funny. They have to go and take a nap. But yeah, and even sometimes when they're supposed to be napping, one's creeping out of the room and going to talk to the other one. Did you hear what she said? So we're capturing that. It's a fun time. It's a wild ride. By the time you're done filming, you're tired, and you're ready for a break, because it's a lot. It's a lot of nonstop for a long time.
Well, it's about closing time for the Rock Shop podcast. Alicia, thank you so much for coming on. Where
You're
can the
welcome.
audience find you?
Thank you for having me, Ryan. So I'm on Instagram at Alicia Godmasch, ALICIAGODMASCH. You can also catch my book on the Barnes and Noble website, and it is called Retrograde the Darkness. And I go under AO Godmash, and yeah, check it out.
Definitely need to link up because I've been wanting to get that book, ever since you brought it up, uh, a few years ago. So we need to link
Yeah,
up because you need to
yeah,
sign it because,
yeah, that'd be great.
I have a decent collection of, autographed books.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm a sci-fi guy myself. I'm writing a sci-fi book. So, we'll
Nice. Yeah, would
swap
be
our
great. I
books
would
one
love it.
day.
Would love it.
But again, thank you so much for coming
You're so
on.
welcome. You're welcome. Thank
And,
you,
un-
Ryan, for having me.
and thank you. And until next time, see ya.